Welcome to Vintage Variety. Today I'm going to show you guys some jewelry that I made. All of these beautiful beaded necklaces are necklaces that I made myself, and all of them were inspired by designer pieces of jewelry. I'm going to show you guys, or rather tell you guys, how I went about putting together the beads for these two blue toned necklaces. For the peach necklace, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to let you guys watch how I constructed it, and I'm going to show you guys how to use a beading board. Now, a lot of you may already know this. Some of you may not. I had a subscriber ask me if I could do content showing how to use a beading board. I'm going to show you guys how I use it, what the different numbers on it are for, and what you can use the different compartments for. Here I have one of my beading boards. I have a couple of these. This one's kind of old and beat up, but it still serves its purpose. You'll notice that there's numbers on the outer edges and also on the inside. The inside numbers are kind of like a ruler. It's in centimeters, and the outside numbers are also like a ruler, but in inches. This beading board goes all the way up to 13 inches on each side. So if you were going to make a necklace and you wanted it to be 26 inches in length, you would run your beads from one end where the 13's at all the way around to the other end, and you're going to use the outside channel for that. It would be the same, for example, let's say you want to make a necklace that's 20 inches in length. In that case, you would lay your beads out in this channel, starting at the 10 and going all the way around to the other 10, because, of course, it's double the number. 10 plus 10 would be 20. Now, if you were adding a clasp to the necklace, that is going to add a little bit of length, and I don't usually worry about that, but you can measure the clasp and just subtract that and shorten the necklace a little bit. Now, the upper part of this board is also a ruler, and this is for making bracelets. If you laid beads all the way across this, it's going to equal out to 7 inches, and then, of course, you're going to add jump rings and a clasp, and that's going to make the bracelet slightly longer. So that's just some really good information. And these bead boards, they come in different sizes. You can get them a lot bigger if you want to make really long necklaces. And with bracelets, what I usually do is I just lay my beads out, and I'll usually add a bigger clasp on the end to get it to be an 8-inch bracelet. Or I'll just account for making a bigger bracelet and add some extra beads. Another thing that I wanted to show you guys are these extra spaces here. These are for laying your beads out in, and you can lay out your beads by size, shape, color, just to keep them organized. I like to reserve one of these spaces to lay out things like my clasps, jump rings, and even crimp beads if I'm using them. This bead board has 3 different channels, and this works out great, especially if you're making multi-layered necklaces. This is made to mimic how the necklaces would lay on your neck. So you would just lay out your beads, let's say if you're making a triple strand necklace, into each one of these channels and get them all laid out in the design or pattern that you wanted. And then you would just string all of the pieces up. Now, if I was making a single strand necklace, for example, I'm just going to use the outer channel of this because that's going to be a longer length than the inner channels. So think about a multi-strand necklace and how it lays on the neck and how one piece is shorter than the other. And that'll kind of give you an idea of how that works. Now, the 0 that you see here at the bottom, that is to account for your focal bead, or let's say you're putting a pendant on the necklace. And what you're going to do is you're going to start laying out your beads at the bottom on each side of that 0. And I'll show you what I mean here. So let's say this is my focal bead, or let's pretend this is a pendant. We're going to start right here with that piece, and then we're going to start laying out beads to the side of it. and work up as far as we want. So if we wanted a 20-inch necklace, we would work up to the 10 mark on this board. This allows you to visualize your design, see if you like the way it looks before you start stringing all the beads up. And it's really easy, let's say if you don't like the way the beads are situated, or let's say you want to do 2 big beads and 2 small beads, you can go back and you can continuously change this until you're completely satisfied with the design. Now, if you weren't using a focal bead or a pendant, you wouldn't worry about the 0 mark. You would just start laying all of your beads out. But this is really great for when you're trying to figure out what you want your piece to look like and what you want your design to look like. And you can manipulate and maneuver things around until you're completely happy with it. This board is felted, and it kind of makes a difference because of the channels and the felting. Your beads aren't going to roll off like they would if you were using a flat desktop or a table. So it kind of helps with keeping everything in place and not having to chase something that rolled away. Usually these bead boards have plastic covers for them. I don't have one for this one, but I do have for my other one. And that's also handy because let's say you're starting on a project and you're not going to get it finished. You can just leave it as is, put the plastic cover on it, and set it to the side. And there's less of a chance when you go to grab the board that you're going to spill beads everywhere. A couple of more things that I wanted to tell you guys. Let's say you've got your design laid out and you're ready to start stringing up your beads. Start at the end. So I would start at this end and start picking up beads and putting them on my stringing material, whether you're using flexible wire or let's say you're using silk beading thread. And I would just pick up the beads one at a time, starting at one end and work all the way around to the other end. And that way you're not going to mess your pattern up. You're going to have everything just the way you laid it out once you get it all strung on. The other thing I will tell you, and this is a mistake that I have made more than once. In fact, I made it when I was constructing the peach colored necklace that I'm going to show you, is if you are going to use a pendant like this one with the bell made onto it, or if you're going to put a jump ring on the necklace and attach a pendant in the front, do that while you're stringing. Because with the peach necklace, I ended up having to go back and remove half the beads and add the pendant onto it. So a mistake that's common, but just so you know, always keep that in mind and just lay your pendant or your jump ring out so that you know to go ahead and string it on as you're stringing the beads. I'm going to show you how I put together this peach necklace, and I am using the inner part or the inner channel on the board because I want this necklace to be short, almost choker length. So what I'm using here is I'm using some peach colored beads that I already had in my stash of beads. I'm also using 2 earrings, and these are earrings, I believe I got them out of a jewelry jar way back when. They're just inexpensive costume jewelry earrings, but I am going to take these earrings apart and just use the beaded part of them. Another thing that I have here is this really pretty little pendant. It was just a loose pendant and also probably came out of a jewelry jar, and I'm going to incorporate it into this necklace. And I like the looks of this. I am not exactly copying, but I'm taking inspiration from a Heidi Doss necklace. And once I get all this strung up, I'm going to show you what my inspiration necklace looked like. I've laid out the other supplies that I'm going to be using for this necklace in some of these little blank spaces. I've got some toggle clasps, some jewelry wire, I have some jump rings in case I need them, and I also have some crimp beads. I'm just going to use my wire cutters, and I'm going to cut the wire part off of these beads so that I can incorporate them into my necklace. So these have like a jewelry pin through them that's been looped and attached to the ear wires. And once I cut all that off, drop it out, I just have a plain bead. And that's kind of what I'm going for here. You can see where I've cut the ear wires off, and there's one little bead on them. I may save the bead, but I'll probably dispose of the ear wires. I'm going to show you guys what I'm thinking for this design. So I'm thinking this is going to be the pendant in the middle, and then I'm going to put one of these beads on each side. And right now I've put wire and looped it on each side, and I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just going to put the beads on the stringing wire, so I'll take those loops off, but this is how it's probably going to look. I may change my mind before I get finished stringing up the necklace. But this is kind of loosely based, as I've already mentioned, off of a Heidi Doss necklace, or rather a design of hers that I saw, and I really liked the color combinations. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start stringing up all these pieces. I'll probably speed the video up a little bit, and because all of these beads are the same color, I'm not going to worry about starting at the end of the beading board. I'm just going to start picking up beads and putting them on my wire. I want to show you guys the mistake that I made here. In my eagerness to get all these beads strung up, I left off the accent beads, and I also left off the pendant part. So I'm going to have to take half of these beads off and put those on there. Not a big deal. I can just slide them off the wire, but I'm going to have to kind of start halfway over. And that was one thing that I mentioned earlier as a precaution. A lot of times you can get sidetracked, or you can just get so eager to get a piece of jewelry put together that you leave off a couple of very important things. One thing that I am seeing here is I don't think that these large beads are going to look right on each side of that pendant. I'm thinking that maybe I should do a large bead, then a peach bead, and then the pendant. So we're going to try that out and see how it looks. First we'll see how it looks with the large beads, and then we'll see how it looks with the peach beads. I'm also going to go ahead and put part of my toggle clasp on one side of the wire, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the way the pendant is going to look with the large bead on the side of it. And I don't think I like the way this looks. I think it's probably going to look better if I do peach bead on each side of the pendant and then the larger bead. This is how it looks with a peach bead on each side of the pendant and then the larger bead, and I think this looks a lot more balanced. This is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go ahead and finish stringing the necklace up. I'm going to put the other part of the clasp on. Then I'll come back and I'm going to show you the finished result on the necklace stand, and I'll also show you which piece of jewelry inspired this necklace. This is my finished necklace, and I mentioned that I did want this a relatively short length because I feel like it's the kind of necklace you want to be seen. I love the combination of the peach beads with the copper toned beads, and of course the cute little pendant that I put on the front of it. As for what this necklace was inspired by, I'm going to split the screen and I'm going to show you a Heidi Doss necklace. On one side of the screen is the necklace that I created today, and on the opposite side of the screen is the necklace that I took inspiration from. That necklace is a Heidi Doss necklace, and I think it's more of a charm. I believe that the pendant part magnetically attaches to the beads, and it's called the Heidi Doss Autumn Artistry Crystal Acorn Charm. That's a mouthful, isn't it? But I did not want to exactly copy her necklace. Of course, I didn't have the right pieces and parts to do so, and that's okay. What I really wanted to do was to create something kind of similar in a similar design of colors, and I think I did a pretty good job, but you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Now I'm going to show you the blue necklaces that I created, what my ideas were, how I went about it, and what inspired them. Much like the Heidi Doss style necklace, I was inspired by another designer to come up with some blue toned necklaces, and I made both of these necklaces. I'm going to tell you how I went about putting them together, the types of beads I used, and just the overall design. I'm going to split the screen and I'm going to put up a picture of the necklaces that inspired me to make these necklaces. This is a model wearing Ralph Lauren necklaces, and this is from the spring and summer of 2025 fashion show. And when I saw this, I just fell in love with this look. You can see that she's wearing layers of blue toned necklaces with lots of rich cobalt colors, and also a long string of pearls with blue beads added into them. So I knew that I wanted to create something similar to the look that she was wearing. What I did to create this necklace was I pulled from my stash of beads and I pulled out any beads that I thought would look appropriate for that necklace. Lots of blue toned beads, a few clear beads, some silver toned spacers. I also ordered some beads, these small cobalt blue beads that you see in the necklace. I did end up purchasing those. And then I had these white beads with the cobalt speckles in them, and I thought those would be a great combination. Again, I wasn't trying to copy the necklace. I was just being inspired by it. Now, the bead that you see here, I love these. I had a string of these that I'd purchased probably 2 years ago from Hobby Lobby. And the neat thing about these beads is they come without anything in the center, and you can put a bead of your choice in the center. In this case, I chose a pearl, and I used a head pin, pushed it through there and looped it on both ends so that it kind of has that pearl look like you saw she was wearing a long string of pearls. And that also makes this necklace a great item to wear with either faux or real pearls. I could layer it with those. I also use some tiny seed beads. I have some milk glass seed beads in here, some cobalt colored seed beads. I used some silver tone bead caps on some of the beads, and even some flat looking silver beads. And I just laid all of these beads out on my bead board, and I maneuvered them around until I came up with a pattern that I really liked the design of, just to create this lovely necklace that's going to layer great with a blue necklace, a vintage necklace that I had restrung that I already had here. Also a very vibrant blue necklace that I thrifted a while back. I mentioned earlier I ordered some cobalt blue glass beads, and I ordered these I think from Michael's and just had them shipped to my house. Well, I took the leftover beads that I didn't use in the other necklace and combined it with some tiny black spinel and some very small silver tone spacers to create a second necklace that I could wear with this blue necklace and layer them together to kind of mimic that look, that Ralph Lauren look that I just fell in love with. So I'm going to go over to my dress stand and I'm going to layer these pieces and show you guys how great they look. I went ahead and put a shirt on my dress form. This is a white button-down collared shirt with blue stripes on it because I'm trying to stick with that Ralph Lauren theme. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer the necklaces that I made on here along with one necklace that I thrifted, one that I already owned, just to show you how you can put together a look that's inspired by something you see either on the internet or in a magazine. And this is how these necklaces look layered together. So there's the two that I made, and then there's this vibrant blue necklace that I managed to thrift. And this isn't identical to the Ralph Lauren look, but I think I did a pretty good job of being inspired by it. I'm going to put the picture up again of the Ralph Lauren model, and you guys can tell me what you think in the comments. One thing that I like about long necklaces is that you can always double them up. And here I've doubled up the longest necklace and created 4 different layers just for a different look. I can add other pieces that I own to them. For example, I've added this vintage necklace. This is one that I restrung a while back. And it's not the same color of blue, but it does have some black in it and it is a blue tone, so it's close enough that it really blends in well with all of these other pieces. Another option is to just double up a longer necklace and wear these layered at a shorter length. And of course, I could also wear these with pearls. So you guys let me know what you think, but I am really happy with how all of my creations turned out. I think that it's wonderful to be able to look at something, be inspired by it, and then create something unique of your own. You guys leave me a comment and let me know, out of all of the necklaces that I showed you today, which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed today's content, please remember to give me a thumbs up. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to share these items with me. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. Ring the bell for notifications and you'll be notified anytime I upload new content. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.